Right, and our first question from the review section. We're going to factorize these three expressions. So the first one is 2x cubed minus 13x squared minus 7x. Now the first thing we do when we're factorizing is to look for a common factor. And the way you can do this is to write each term out as all its sort of prime factorization plus all the variables times together. So the prime factors of 2 are just 2, and we get times x times x times x. And then on the minus 13x squared, well, we won't worry about the sign, but if we look at 13x squared, we get, well, 13's prime times x. And 7's also prime on the 7x. So we get 7 times x, and the only things which is common to all of them is 1x. So that is our common factor. So if we're going to factorize this, we take out x, and then we look at what's left. So let's take out x from the 2x cubed. We get 2x and x left, that's 2x squared. Next term, remember, was a minus, that's minus 13 times x is left there. And then we've just got 7, but remember it's a minus 7 left here. So our answer for A is x, open brackets, 2x squared minus 13x minus 7 so far. Well, let's just see if we can factorize that any further. And what we're trying to do is look and see if we can find a way of putting this into two sets of brackets like this. So we look at the factors of 7. We've got 1 and 7 basically. And we look at the factors of 2, which are 1 and 2. Can we combine these in any way to get a minus 13? Bearing in mind this is a minus. Well, we can see 7 times 2 is 14 and 1 times 1 is 1. So take one away from the other, you'll get 13. What we need to do is make sure the 7 and 2 are in the opposite ends. So put the 7 over here, put the 2 over here. Got our x out there. And we're going to have a 1 here, and we're going to have one lot of x here. Just got to work out where the minus must go. We want minus 13x, so therefore the number of x's must be big and negative. So minus 7 times minus 2 gives us minus 14x. 1 times x will give us plus x, which added together gives you the minus 13x. And that is our final answer for part A. For part B, so that was part A. Part B, we're going to look at 9x squared minus 16. Now this is a trick one. You got to spot this one really. It's a difference of two squares. We can see we've got 3x all squared here, because 9 is 3 squared and x is x squared, and we've got 4 squared here. Now if you know your difference of two squares, you will know that a squared minus b squared will equal a plus b times by a minus b. So therefore in this case our a will be 3x, because it's 3x all squared. So think about that as being 3x all squared, and we've got 4 squared. So therefore our a will be 3x, our b will be 4, and we can just fill it all in nicely. In case you're not quite sure where this comes from, why not do FOIL just to check on the a plus b times a minus b. If we type in FOIL, just expand that. FOIL, F stands for first two things, so you get a squared, a times a. Outer two things for O, a times minus b gives you minus ab. Inner two things, plus ab. When you times those together, the two inner things. And the last two things, the two b's, minus b squared, because a minus times a plus gives us a minus. And we can see that these two cancel to leave us just a squared minus b squared, so that's where that comes from. Now part C, we're going to do x to the 4 plus 7x squared minus 8. And the trick here is to spot you've got a quadratic. Okay, and naturally what you're going to be doing is taking out the x to the 4, you've got x squared here, and you've got x squared here as a term. So you can imagine this is just like a quadratic. Some people find it easier if you let y equal x squared, and you can see it more easily. So if you've got x squared equal to y, then x to the 4 will equal y squared. So we write y squared plus 7y minus 8. And some people find that a lot easier to factorize. So let's factorize this. We know we must have two things that times together to give us 8, or minus 8, and add to give us 7. So 8 and minus 1 gives us minus 8, and add to give us 7. So we get y, I said minus 1, didn't I? And I have y plus 8. And that is my factorization of the y. But remember, y was equal to x squared. And so therefore, everywhere we've got a y, we've got an x squared. And we can factorize it a little bit further because we've got a difference of two squares here, x squared minus 1 squared. So effectively that's x minus 1 times by x plus 1. And you've got x squared plus 8, which can't be factorized anymore. So these two expressions here, sorry, just losing my pen there, are exactly the same, using the difference of two squares thing that we found earlier. Alright, this bit here. So you can see how difference of two squares can be very useful. So let's just review the answers to these questions. Different types of factorization. First of all, you've got the one where you take out a common factor. So here we took out the x. You can just do it straight off. You don't have to prime factorize to be able to find the common factor that you're going to take out. If you can see that there's an x in here, an x in here, an x in here, you can take out straight away, then do it. Then you're left with the quadratic to be factorized here. Difference of two squares, special factorization. Remember this formula and then it becomes easy. Then the last one is when you've got a quadratic in x squared. Sometimes if you've got x to the 4 and just an x squared, that's a quadratic in x squared. Sometimes it's easier for a lot of people just to let y equal x squared and rewrite it in terms of y, factorize that, and then put the x squareds back in. If you're quite good with your algebra, you will jump straight from x to the 4 plus 7x squared minus 8x to this line here.